our whatever we're wanting to build $6.5 million. We're going to spend $5 million to stop a train from blowing its horn. So that's my soapbox time.
Councilmember Anderson.
You said that it doesn't cost anything to pass this on to BNSF?
Correct.
Okay. And do we need a motion to do that? I think
Just
come this far,
consensus.
we need to at least discuss it with them. So we have the full breadth of information to present at such time that this is brought up, that we're actually looking to make a decision to move forward or not. So you said we do or do not need a motion?
No, just a consensus to let them go ahead. Or
It doesn't cost anything to do it. We need to pass things on.
And I have attended, and I actually agree with Councilmember Stan, but since it's not costing us anything, let's take it through and see what's going on. Councilmember Kerstetter.
You said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay. I should have just waited a second.
That's okay.
All right. So you have your direction.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to new business. I guess you're not going to sit down and stand back up again, are you? Okay. Item A, approval of Nest drainage improvements change order.
Thank you again. So we recently completed a drainage improvement project for a storm sewer outfall to the river. This is south of Nest Street, west of Meridian. So the city, through their MS4 permit, which is through KDHE, has an obligation to maintain storm sewer systems in our outfalls to the river. In this scenario, we had an existing storm sewer pipe that had eroded the riverbank. We were in jeopardy of losing several large trees. Put together a small construction package for bank stabilization, as well as construction of a new precast outfall structure. All of that went well. It was about 3 days total of construction. So unfortunately, we were in a position where we didn't have a great opportunity to pause construction and follow our normal protocol for taking change orders through council. Some additional stabilization was needed above and beyond what the contract documents called for, in this case, turf reinforcement mat. So if you're not familiar with that, it's a geotextile. It's like a rubber rollout mat. Looks similar to construction fence. It's layered. It's got straw. It gets stapled down. Really helps with soil eroding around the tree root zones. I will say that McCullough was extremely favorable, the contractor, in working with us on this change order negotiation. You see their pricing is included in your packets this evening. They have not requested any consideration for labor or equipment. They are strictly passing along the cost of the material itself. So we feel very good about the request, and the mat is installed. So we will certainly hope that you approve this change order.
Council.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order for Nest drainage improvement in the amount of $1,402.50.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item B, water meter waiver request.
Good evening once again. With us this evening, we have Mr. Ryan Nett. He is representing a development firm that is they currently own property just south of McLaughlin Park, as noted in my memo. And hopefully you all received the updated memo that was sent out by City Administrator Clark. They are proposing to construct a 40-unit multifamily residential development. And before they go through the standard site plan review process, are asking for a waiver on one of our city regulations. This is in conjunction or in relation to the water meter. So typically, per our city code, any residential, any building that has 8 or fewer units in it does require a separate water meter per unit. Mr. Nett has met with city staff multiple times, and city staff has come to an agreement with Mr. Nett, which we are proposing this evening, which would, rather than follow the city standard, allow for a waiver. This has been done before in the past. I would mention Sunflower Gardens and Fieldcrest. So this is something that's not out of the realm of what we've done before in our recent history in terms of multifamily development. What we are recommending is the creation of a single water meter. This would be a 2-inch, and the recommendation is at the end of the memo, but I'll just read it. Creation of a 2-inch water tap on the city's main water line. This would connect to a 2-inch water meter. This would be installed in the city's right-of-way for maintenance purposes. And from this 2-inch meter, there will be 9 private water service lines that would run from that meter, one to each building. This will ensure that we can have high quality and pressure servicing each of those buildings, each of those future residents that will be calling Valley Center home. We believe that this is a very fair compromise to both the city operations as well as to the developer. Mr. Nett is with us this evening, and as I do in my planning and zoning board meetings, would invite the council to have Mr. Nett come up to address this governing body and answer any questions that you may have of him. I'll stand for any questions as well.
Any questions of Mr. Schrack? Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, I have one question. We did this with the Sunflower Edition, correct?
Yes.
And wasn't it stated at one time that this would probably happen again? Of changing from one individual unit to making it 1 meter?
So we look at every development on a case-by-case basis and understand that we do try to follow the city code, the city guidelines, but that each case is unique, each case is different. In the case of Sunflower Gardens and Fieldcrest, it made sense to do 1 meter per building just because of the layout. Those were also a lot larger developments as opposed to this one. This one will be on a smaller lot. It is a single parcel of land. There will be a series of 4plexes and then a couple of 6plexes. But city staff feels that service will be adequate given the size of the proposed size of the development and looking at this configuration of both the water, the tap on the water main as well as the single meter.
Okay, and you say in here that the meters, it was the second line and the first line is based on 1 water meter per dwelling unit. The second one's based on per building.
Right, so on the
Now, what if those figures are different?
I'm sorry?
What if the figures are different?
So the financial analysis page you're referring to, Councilmember Colbert. So the 3 columns you have before you, the first one on the left is the city standard. That would be 1 meter per unit. So that'd be a total of 40 meters. The middle one is what we have done in other developments where it's 1 meter per building. The far right column is what is being requested and what has been agreed to by city staff. And what we're recommending before council this evening is 1 meter that will then from there disperse to 9 separate private water service lines, 1 to each building.
I'm not comfortable with it for one reason. Even though they have separate meters, okay?
No, there's 1 meter, and
Well,
then separate
that's what I'm
lines.
saying. It's 1 meter, but if they had separate meters on the apartment, then nobody could argue about how much water they use. But if you have 1 meter, you will get an argument.
Right. So one of the as part of this configuration, after the meter, each of the 9 private service lines, there will be a shutoff, so that if there are issues, it would be possible to filter through each of those 9 buildings to determine where the water service issue is. So there will be a shutoff at each of those 9 service lines after the meter.
After the meter. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
I'm still trying to understand when I read through this, but when you talk about a water meter, you're talking about the one that actually processes how much water is being used then.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So if we've got 1 water meter, it kind of goes off what Councilman Colbert stated. How do we make sure that our constituents are being billed accurately?
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You know how to do that. I was going to do it louder, but I'll save that for later. And so, the great thing, with what we're proposing is, it's 1 meter. So everything after the meter is on that property owner. And so it's up to the development group to handle their customers when it comes to everything after the meter. Nowadays, with a 2-inch meter, it's extremely accurate. And so it will count for every single, gallon and per 1,000 gallon water that's passed through that meter. As soon as it gets through that meter, it's on the developer end to figure out any leaks, if there's any issues. Our job ends up. And so that's why we feel this approach. But also, it's a good compromise having 9 separate shutoffs with 1 service line per building to making sure that, we have good chlorine residual and that the water doesn't get stagnant. In the beginning of this process and this project, we had looked at many different options. Really appreciate PC's input on this, on not having a separate 3-inch main that we then have to make sure that water is flowing through adequately. And so this is the best compromise that we came up with for everybody to win-win. The great thing is, Councilman Colbert, that this one is actually collecting property tax dollars. The sunflower gardens and field crests, those are tax exempt. And so this will add to our city resources in multiple ways when it comes to water, sewer, and property taxes.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
So I think this is for Mr. Schrack. Where did he disappear? Oh, there he is. So if we approve this waiver or whatever we're calling it, what's the next step for the developer?
Excellent question. So what happens is they will go through the standard site plan review process with the Planning and Zoning Board. That'll be a series of documents done by an engineer as well as an architect that of course is licensed. They will submit that information to us. It'll be reviewed by the city staff review team and then submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board for approval. So what they're looking at is the layout of the buildings, parking, utility lines, making sure that they're following the appropriate zoning and building codes. So all of that is part of the site plan review process. Once the Planning and Zoning Board approves that site plan, then the builder can move forward with obtaining their building
Okay,
permits.
So that would go to the Planning and Zoning Board. Okay.
The site plans, yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
if they don't approve how many units? 8, 10 units?
40. Well, so their proposal is a 40 unit development.
Okay, so if they don't approve the current plan, how is that going to affect water line?
That's why we're doing this first, getting the water meter waiver done first through city council.
Okay.
That way they can proceed with doing the actual site plans based on what is approved by
Okay, well, so
by
I guess
city
my
council.
question is, if the site plan doesn't approve that many units or that many buildings and it's fewer, we'll just back off on how many lines they get after the meter?
I suppose, right now we're comfortable with the 40 units. They have submitted a very preliminary sketch layout of what these 9 buildings would look like.
So for me, I've driven by this area a lot. It just seems like a lot of buildings for that really small space.
Right.
So that's where I'm trying to
Okay.
see it in my head of what happens if it's too much for that little area.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's the one change the number of meters.
Oh, no. So I understand that part.
So it would still be 1 meter.
Right.
Regardless of how many buildings or total number of units end up being on that final plan review. We do have some preliminary sketches of that property. If you remember when we did the rezoning side of it, and those things, kind of alluded to how that layout would look and work.
Well, I guess so. I get maybe this is for Mr. Golka then. If we got 1 meter, okay, and then we're having 9 lines after that, is okay, or 8, 9, okay. If the Planning and Zoning Board says no to 9, we'll do 8. The water pressure and all that stuff will be acceptable.
Yep, nothing
Okay.
changes.
Nothing
Except for just the number of lines.
All right, that's all I needed. Sorry for the confusion to get to that point.
Well, now that would have been different if there was a different request.
Okay.
Right.
This one's just for one nice meter that has a clear separation of our responsibilities.
Right,
And
that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood everything.
Councilmember Anderson.
I have a question. I'm going to kind of back off. I think we're getting focused too closely on the details of this. My question is for either one of you two, why is 8 an arbitrary number for our city code? It's cut off anything less than 8 unit building. Why is it 8? Because I think what Dale was getting at here was if he reconfigured his buildings and made 5 8-unit buildings, he wouldn't be having this request. So why do we have set at 8, not 4 or 5?
I think and I'm speaking from a historical perspective here. At the time, 8 was kind of the line in the sand between an apartment versus, more of a like a duplex.
Right.
That you got to pick a number, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is. And at the time, the decision was made that 8 is kind of the line in the sand for an apartment setting where, you're not selling off individual units. It is a structure owned by one person that is renting those facilities. So at the end of the day, the city is collecting the water service fee from one person.
Right.
The reason that we consider proposals like this on Fieldcrest or here is that it's the same scenario. You're going to have one person responsible for paying that meter or that water service fee on a monthly basis.
Okay. That's kind of what I was getting at. I think we're splitting hairs on stuff and focus too much on it. I think at the end of the day, this is always going to be owned by an individual and they're not going to split them off and sell them. So that's really what we need to look at. I like leaving it where we have anything that comes before us. Yes, we need to approve a variance for it and leave it the way it is, but that way it gets addressed in front of this body and I have no problem with it. So
how about a motion?
To approve a waiver at McLaughlin Place to allow for the creation of a single 2-inch water tap on the city's main water line that will connect to a 2-inch water meter to be located in the city's right-of-way. That then will connect to 9 private water service lines that will run to each building.
second.
I got a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-1. All righty, move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to staff reports. Why did you bother to even sit down? It was gonna come back to you real quick there.
I don't know why I did that. All right. So we got some very exciting news last week. The Census Bureau released the very first, basically we call it raw data, but some census population results from the 2020 census. And our population unofficially for now is 7,340. We experienced a growth rate over the past 10 years or the past decade of 7.59%. And City Administrator Clark did put together a nice little chart here that does track that percentage for other communities in the surrounding region, right here. And so we're about in the middle of the road. And I think what's exciting is with all of the multiple developments that we have going on right now, both in multifamily, the plats that we have going on with our new residential subdivisions, the TIF districts that we are actively working on. I think we're definitely going to see an uptick in this number here in the next few years. So that's very encouraging. But again, I just wanted to let everyone know that there is a slight chance that this number could change. Again, this is raw data. So over the course of probably about the next 6 months to a year, the Census Bureau will continue to flesh this out. There may be a few adjustments, and this number could change, but it won't. Maybe change by a handful or maybe even 20. But again, this is our number for now. And again, I would like to thank the council and everyone throughout the community that was supportive of our efforts during the pandemic of really getting the word out to complete the census. So thank you again for helping us complete the 2020 census, and we'll keep going for positive growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Owens.
Just want to give a quick shout out to Brian's Heating and Air tonight. You may not know this, but last week when they were doing maintenance, we had a catastrophic failure on one of our cooling units, and we have them to thank for getting it back up and running so quickly and efficiently. They finished up probably about 4:30 this afternoon, started yesterday morning. So anyways, and it not only involved replacing one of the condensing units, but some components upstairs, which was, it's like crawling through a cave to try to get up there and get to all the components that are above us. So all those behind the scenes folks are much appreciated. So,
and I'm assuming by that you're talking about this building.
In this building here, yes.
Okay.
So we have them to thank for the nice air conditioning tonight.
We also should be thankful that they actually had what they needed to fix it too. So
And could get
with the way things are, the supply chains these days. So
Yes.
the fact that they could do that quickly is amazing too. So.
And they always do a good job of putting us at the top of the list when there's a problem, and they don't get enough thank yous and stuff. So they're our hometown HVAC guys, and we really appreciate them for getting us up and running so quickly
Thanks.
again for this meeting.
All right. Chief Newman?
Didn't initially have anything for tonight, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my people, especially my daytime crew today. Last night or early morning hours to this morning, we had a string of car burglaries. We had a vehicle stolen, and the daytime crew that came in and started taking those reports through their persistence by lunchtime today, they recovered our stolen vehicle. They recovered some of the property taken from the auto burglaries. We recovered a stolen vehicle from Wichita, and we had 2 people in custody. So
All right.
just wanted to give a quick shout out to them.
Yes. Not sure how you're going to follow that, Mr. Eggleston. All right. Mr. Golka. Mr. Arbuckle. Mr. Smith.
Just a few things here. We made some more advancements in our transition away from paper. We are now on all electronic direct deposit slips to all of our employees. So you council members, when you get your monthly payroll this month, it will be an electronic direct deposit slip as well. Come into your email. And we also had a meeting today to get our employee open enrollment each year on an electronic and web portal basis as well. So trying to get away from all that manual work and double entry and all that stuff. Just a quick update on budget. At our next meeting on September 7th, we will have our revenue neutral rate hearing, and then our normal budget rate hearing, and then our adoption for the 22 budget. So we'll be getting those published here soon and posted on our website. That's all I got.
Thank you. Should I or shouldn't I? Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In the famous words of Mr. Josh Golka, no thank you.
All righty. We'll move on to governing body reports. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Girl Scout Troop, hang on, I had it here, 40635 that are here tonight. Yeah. And for you girls, this wasn't too boring, but stick around. I will come down there and try to answer whatever questions you have. I'll drag our city administrator with me because if I don't have the answers, he does. So stick around and I'll be down there as soon as this is over. All right, moving on. Councilmember Stam.
I just have a question for Ryan. Are we going to look at redistricting the wards once the census data does get released, seeing if everything's still evenly split? Okay.
Councilmember Evans.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Davis.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Davis is probably extremely tired since this is the first week of school and he works for the maintenance group. So I'm sure he just wants to go home. Councilmember Anderson.
Then I'll be brief so we can go home. The volunteers group that serves the senior lunches at the community building have had a gracious offer of help through the school district. There is a lot of you aren't aware of this. The co-op reformed within our district. Basically, we're running our own co-op. There used to be, we basically have, I think, a couple other schools, but mainly under us. They have started a Next Steps Academy, which is 18 to 21-year-olds. Basically, it's what they do after high school, and you can read about it. I think I'll try to bring a link to that. I think there's a link online, but the director of that reached out, and there's 8 students involved in that program. So they bring over 4 and one of their teachers to help. And today we started that, and they help us serve lunch to the drive-through. We do drive-through lunch of about 30 to 50 every Tuesday and Thursday, and then we've started back in person, and we have anywhere from 15 to 25 in there. So those students are helping us out, and we much appreciate that, especially since all of my children who were forced labor over the summer are now back in school. So I want to let everybody know about that. I don't think Mr. Clark was even aware of that, but it just started today, and first day went very well.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory.
Just want to thank probably Mr. Owings for replacing the mic.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
Good tonight. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Colbert.
I'm hiding. There's nothing. I don't have anything this evening. So if there's no other business before the council, or make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.